Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video. Today we're going to talk about the top 10 archetypes and cards from set 7. I'm actually really excited for this set. I think all the multicolor stuff will really reinvigorate the game, and also we had a really sweeping ban list that almost got rid of a lot of the problem cards that I didn't like playing around. With all these counterplay stuff, I think there's going to be a lot of potential for alternative plays and that kind of stuff. I'm really excited for it. I don't think there's like any like super duper broken powerful cards in this set, but more of just some archetypes that allow for different play styles, and I really like that. I think there was a lot of get to turn 4 first and get your combo off going on in the last set, and I think this is going to kind of stray away from that. So I'm really interested in seeing how this goes off, and let's go into this list by starting with number 10.
Number 10.
All right, this is my list, so I'm going to be a little biased. So number 10 is going to be Raddatz. I honestly think Raddatz is close to being a viable deck, but I believe that there are like one or two things that are holding it back. Mostly, it gets rid of a card advantage for your opponent by giving you kind of some small card advantage, but I don't think this deck is bad in any regard. Maybe it's not great, but I think it's viable in some senses, and just it has a really cool flavor, and I just really like this deck. So what the leader's good at doing is that every time you swing at a leader card with your leader, your opponent has to warp one card from their life, or not from their life, from their hand into their warp area. And that's fantastic in so many ways, unless you're like Toa, where you kind of want cards in your warp. But being able to gain advantage by just kind of diminishing your opponent's advantage can kind of be great. And a lot of times there are cards that really rely on having the cards in your drop area, and by putting them in warp instead of drop, it kind of goes around that. And also, it doesn't get hit by Mercenary Towel, because Mercenary Towel only affects cards that get sent to the drop, discard to the drop area. This is warping them instead. So I think there's a lot of flavor and a lot of potential with this leader. And also, it kind of has its own archetype built into it, mostly because of this 3-drop of Last Resort Vegeta. Because when you play this card, if your leader card is specifically Raddatz, you may choose one card in your hand, place in your drop area. If you do so, choose up to one Powerball from your deck, activate it, then shuffle your deck. And what Powerball does is essentially goes into the 6-drop ape, which goes on top of the 3-drop you just played to play Powerball. And then the 6-drop ape, you can pop it yourself and go into Vegeta Saiyan Elite. This card is fantastic. Being able to be a 20k double strike is already fine, but when this card attacks your opponent, chooses 2 cards in their hand and sends them to the warp, which is great. And then also, for 1 red and 1 green, you're able to make your opponent just take 1 damage as long as you have a green Saiyan leader. So, nice little archetype. I think this card's cool. And I'm really interested to see if someone's able to really fine-tune it enough to be super meta viable. But right now, I think it's just a cool archetype that's sitting around, and maybe it will get support to really, turn it over the edge. So with that, let's go into number 9.
Number 9.
Next up is the new blue-yellow Goku Black and Zamasu archetype that comes out of this set. And I really like this archetype just because I feel like the support for it helps not only the new archetype, but the old archetype. I feel like you can put a lot of the new cards into the old one, and a lot of the old cards come into the new one. So great for both sides for that. The main idea for the kind of like this set of cards is that you want to make your opponent get to 8 energy, and then use your opponent your leader effect to send 4 cards from your opponent's life to the bottom of their deck. That can be a really great win condition. I really like decks that have a leader that has a win condition in part of it. It takes a lot of kind of like the RNG and the fact of like, oh, it has a win condition, but you have to draw it or find it. Having on the leader is I think kind of mitigates that risk, and more of it's getting the cards that get to your win condition, right? So this win condition is kind of a bit steep, I'd say. Getting your opponent to 8 energy is a little bit hard, especially since we've been in kind of like a 4 energy format in the last couple of months. But I think it's something that's completely possible, and there are cards that help you out in a lot of ways. Fusamasu is like the easy one to point out, because it gets 2 cards from your opponent's hands, put them in their energy. But there are also cards like this 3-drop Goku Black. If I was to choose one card from all of these, I'd say this is the best one. being able to ramp for free, and then also like potentially putting cards in your opponent's life, in your opponent's energy, if it's not an extra card, is helpful for this deck. But if they do get an extra card, then it helps you, if you're not running the other deck. So a lot of potential there. Also, this 4-drop, being able to remove a card, add a token, and just tokens in general. I think they really kind of pushed it where this deck is supposed to make a bunch of these shadow tokens, and Master Applications, I'd say, like, is like the second place best deck or best card in here. So being able to play this card, and you can even play it off of Goku Black, so it's really searchable in that sense, but it turns all your shadow tokens into blockers, and since they're blocker tokens, and tokens have no, like, the weird energy cost thing, this can actually be better than cards with energy costs, just because there are a lot of effects that simply say, oh, if it's a destroy a 4 cost or less, no energy cost is not the same as 0, so you can't blow up the token, and so you got a lot of value from there. So I think this deck can work. It's a little bit tricky, and your opponent can kind of play around it, and giving your opponent energy kind of feels bad. But I think there's a chance for this a little bit. I wouldn't bet the farm on it, but there's that. And then also, I'd say this archetype is the best one to run the secret rare. Just the fact that you have to have your opponent has to have 6 or more energy, which this deck kind of does already. Or your opponent has to have 6 or more cards in rest mode. I reduced the energy cost by this in 3. It's still a 5-drop, so that's you still have to kind of get to 5 energy to play it, which is kind of hard sometimes. But once again, I'd say if you have this card, you put this in this blue-yellow deck, but you don't have to run it to have it. I think the red-green secret rare is a little bit more splashable in general, but here's a deck with that one. It's blue-yellow Zamasu. So with that, let's move on to number 8.
Number 8.
Next up is Red Gohan. Mostly it's just this leader I'm talking about. A little bit of the cards that support it, but I think this leader is fantastic in so many ways, and it has so many effects, honestly, and can just do so many things and have synergy with a lot of cards that have existed and will exist with set 7 coming out. So let's talk about that. It has a active main, once per turn, burst 2. Choose one card in your life, add to your hand, and then if your opponent has 5 or more life, you deal 1 damage to them. So being able to deal damage to your opponent without having to attack them is, I think, fantastic. Sure, it's only until they have 4 or less life, and then you don't deal damage anymore, but you're also still a self-awakened leader, so you can just say, oh, once per turn, add 1 card from my life to my hand. Great, now I'm at 4, and now I can awaken, that kind of stuff. So I think that's flexible, and it really helps out this leader in a lot of ways. It's a draw 2 leader, which is kind of awkward. We haven't seen a draw 2 kind of in a while, but it makes sense because if it was an untapped 2, I think there could be a lot of broken combos going on, so I think that's fine. I think untap 1, draw 1 would have been fine as well, but whatever. And then on the awakened side, it's sparking 5, draw 1, auto once per turn when one of your cards activates Alliance. Choose up to one of your opponent's cards with 30k power or less and KO it, which is kind of trivial. And we didn't really get that many new Alliance cards either, but we got like 1 or 2. And then also active main, once per turn, sparking 5. Choose 3 cards in your hand, place them in your drop area. Choose all your green and red cards. They gain 10k power for duration of the turn, and that's a really good trade if you have a board full of these guys. So it really just is pretty simple in the sense of like, oh, I want to be really aggressive, and I think that really fits this. And there are a lot of things, and there are a lot of cards that come out of the set that kind of just are like red-green cards that gain value by being able to cheat out some dudes and that kind of stuff, mostly like these Trunks, and also like this Red Gohan that's able to EX evolve for 1 red and 1 colorless on a Gohan with 3. When a card evolves into this card, draw 2. And if there's no battle cards in play, you choose 1 green Son Goten and 1 green young Trunks Youth with an energy cost of 4 for your drop area and play it. So you're able to get these guys for free. Just a lot of value, and I really think it's interesting how this deck works and is able to pressure your opponent. So I really like this leader. I think it's going to see a lot of experimentation, a lot with GT as well. But yeah, just a cool leader to see.
Number 7.
All right, next up is King Vegeta. I know this is a starter deck, but guess what? It's my list, baby, so it's set 7. So I really like this leader, and I think it has a lot of flexibility, even though it's kind of, I don't know, we'll just kind of talk about it. So the permanent is you can't include non-Saiyan battle cards in your deck, which is like the least limiting like factor I can think of. There are so many Saiyans in this game. It's not like a huge deal. It also has like some interesting like awakening mechanics. So activate once per turn, choose one card in your life, add to your hand. Look at the top 5 cards for your deck. Choose up to one red or green Saiyan card or King Vegeta's Dynasty from your deck, add to your hand, then shuffle your deck afterwards. So being able to like draw 2 cards on your turn is fantastic. And guess what? If your entire deck is Saiyans and you just choose red green, you can look at the top 5 cards from your deck and add any one of them. That's the idea for this deck. You just look at the top 5 cards from your deck and draw one. Like that's fantastic in so many ways. Being able to be flexible in that, and then also when you have a King Vegeta's Dynasty in your battle area and 3 or more cards in your energy, you may draw one, choose up to one of your energy, switch to active mode, then flip this card over. So it's kind of weird having like the awakened condition be based on an extra card, but since the extra card is really searchable, I don't think it's a big deal. And then on the awakened side, it's this leader's just really breaking the mold in so many ways. But choose active main once per turn. Choose one. You may choose one red or green Saiyan card in your battle area, place it in the drop area. If you do, this card, if you do draw one, this card gets plus 5k power and double strike for duration of the turn. Choose one battle card from your hand with any cost 2 or less and play it. If with its skill negated for the duration of the turn, then draw one. So it's really interesting that you can draw cards without having to actually attack with this leader on the awakened side. I don't really think we've seen that so much. So cool thing there. Being able to give the leader itself double strike, but just having to sacrifice one of your dudes is fine too. So I think this deck is going to be really swarmy, and so sacrificing a dude isn't going to be a big thing. And there's also King Vegeta's Dynasty, so it's a fuel card with energy exhaust because it's red green. And when this card is placed in your battle area and your leader card is a King Vegeta, choose up to one Saiyan card with energy cost 2 or less in your hand, play it with its skill negated for duration of the turn. If you played a card, draw 2 cards. So being able to use 2 energy to go essentially is plus 1, and being able to summon a card with its skill negated. So it's a really good tempo play. Depends kind of on the card you play, but just having all that. And also, when your opponent attacks with a card, you may choose one red card in your energy, switch to rest mode, and place this card in its owner's drop if you do negate the attack. So kind of having like an emergency negate when you really need it can help as well. Not a fantastic thing, or not like the reason you add this card, but I think there's just a lot of like red green Saiyans that you can build with this leader. And I think it's a cool leader that's just going to be more powerful as time goes on.
Number 6.
All right, for number 6, we're going to do, this is not really an archetype R card. This is like a bold strategy, but it's really just most of these new counterplays. I say most because I think the yellow extra card kind of sucks. 2 energy for 2 draw already. Like if it was just like you can activate it on your turn, that'd be terrible. But like on a counterplay, it's all just, I don't know. It's just wonky. It makes sense in like what Mecha Frieza, but outside of that, it's just like it's a type card. I don't know. Like, but I think all these new cards are fantastic in so many ways. If I was to choose my favorite ones, Denial of Hope is fantastic. It's like I'd almost say that Denial of Hope is better than Preemptive Strike. I think there are more things that are being played that with 20k or less power than things that are being played with 4k or energy cost of 4 or less. So. But I think this is a fantastic card. I think this is a card that red decks needed to be needed for controls. So I think that's fantastic. And then also Hidden Power of the Saiyans. This one's really interesting. If you're running hand destruction, I think you should run this card no matter what, because either your opponent loses their tempo or just loses 2 cards in hand for 2 energy, and I think that's worth it. And then You're Wide Open is just like meh. Adding cards back to your opponent's hand is usually worse than dropping them, but especially if it's a card that like they want to activate more than once. Though if you play this counterplay, it just goes back in the hand without activating. So there's that, but definitely like the second weakest to the yellow one. But there's also these new These new 3-cost counterplay cards. And then if you have a multicolor card in your energy, you reduce this in your hand by 1. So technically, in most decks, these are 2 costs, but they have a lot of cool effects that go off on auto timing as well. So, which is important because it gets a round deflect. But so there's a Champa, which is pretty much like a more expensive Mutaito that just hits everything though. So, and then you also draw a card if it's your opponent's turn. So it's not like strictly worse or better than Mutaito. It's just strictly different, but kind of the similar thing. We've got the red Mach Speed Kaioken Son Goku. This one's okay. Being able to, it can KO like 2 of your opponent's cards if they have a 10k and 5k out. You can just choose those, or it can double up and go on a 15k. This card's good for your opponent going wide, but I don't think it's. I think it's probably the worst of the 4, but it's still pretty good, and I think it has some chance. Next up, we've got the Vegeta the Cruel. I think this one's the best one for so many reasons. Being able to just like KO a card with a 4 cost or less already is fantastic, and also on top of that, your opponent has to warp a card from their hand, so you pretty much use 2 energy to go like +2. And if they played 3 energy to play a card and you play this for 2, you already like are winning on like energy trades and that kind of stuff. So I really like this card, and I really recommend it for any multicolor deck with green. And then there's also Undying Spirit Son Gohan. So this is kind of like the same thing with your wide open. You have to return the card to your opponent's hand, which just means they can play it next turn. But you also get to untap an energy, so it's like somewhat, I don't know. It's all right. I'm not super stoked for this, but the red and green ones I think are really cool. Just the fact that I think Preemptive Strike is also going to be run also as a counterpart to Hidden Power of the Saiyans. Just you choose the one that works for your deck best, but it's going to be really interesting to see how these shine, especially with a meta without minus Achilles Zone.
Number 5.
All right, for number 5, another kind of short and sweet one. It's Familiar Bonds and Assembling the Squad. These are the 2 of the 3 Desire ones, and the other one's the kind of stinky one that is a yellow one for 3 energy that just makes a new Zamasu. I don't think it's great. Maybe someone can break it in like Mecha, or not Mecha, but like yellow Dende or whatever. But I think these 2 are definitely above the curve in so many ways. We'll talk about Assembling the Squad. So this is kind of like Bandai's fix to having to get rid of Child's Wish for just bad balancing and that kind of stuff. So I think this card is a good compromise. It lets Agent of Destruction Dende Buu Majin Buu be a thing again, which I think a lot of people were kind of upset with. Kind of had to go away. So this is a good card for this because there's a 2-drop red Majin Buu, which you can evolve on top of the 3-drop and all that. So, or not the 3-drop, the 5-drop, and go from there. So I think that's great. There's some cheese that you can use with like shoutouts to Sandy with Scuffle Time, or also you can use it for like the 2-drop green Kaba. And the fact that this searches from the deck also is I would say across the board slightly better than Child's Wish in that sense, as long as what you're trying to revive is a 2-drop. I think there's a lot of potential for this card, and I think it kind of puts paints Bandai into a design corner again, which I don't think they really need to do themselves. But then also we've got Familiar Bonds. I'd say this is more strict in its restrictions, but if you can play this card, it's really good. So for 2 energy, you're able to summon a red Saiyan in your drop area with 3 costs or less and 15k power or less. So straight out, you're able to use 2 energy to play something with 3 energy, so that's already good, right? And then also on top of that, if you did play a card, you can choose up to 2 Dragon Balls from your deck and out into your hand and shuffle your deck. So you get to go kind of like +2 and also get a guy out on the board. So it's just a fantastic value swing. I think red Shenron leaders needed a bit of a boost, and I think this is a really big boost, so we'll see from there. But it's also not restricted to red Shenron leaders. It's any red leader, so any leader that's already red and running cards, you can just consider running this card and just get a bonus for no good reason. So I think this card's good. Maybe a little bit overtuned, but we'll see how it affects the meta.
Number 4.
All right, for number 4, we've got our Red Broly. I really like this leader so much. I've been asking for this leader or a leader like this for a while, so I'm happy we finally got it, and just kind of baby steps, but I think it has a lot of things going for it. The fact that it's just an OG Broly with an untap leader skill is, untap awaken is great, but I think just in general, this is a solid card. Having a 10k crit on the awakened side, or unawakened side, is just adds a lot of pressure, and also on top of that, you get dormant legends out on the field for free, and being able to kind of get value for something your opponent needs to do anyways, i.e., take your life. I think that can really be a problem sometimes. Right now there are only two targets for this card. There's Broly Rapid Barrage, which is able to give minus 10k to something, so being able to blow up one of your opponent's battle cards, but also it has the active effect of whenever your opponent's combos, you can drop a card and go from there and put it from the combo area to the drop area. So there's a lot of disruption there, and there's also this new 4-drop red, which the main thing of this is auto once per turn when your opponent activates a counter skill, deal 1 damage to them. So being able to just deal damage to your opponent for them trying to mitigate damage can be really impressive as well. So I really like this leader. I think it has a lot of potential. Being able to run this, and also the new, like the 6-drop Broly, which is pretty much just a juiced version of this 4-drop, giving minus 15k to up to 2 of your opponent's cards, ignoring barrier, is absurd, especially in the battle phase. And also when your opponent combos, you're able to discard a card and all that. So, and I also really, really think this is a smart card to build, the Super Saiyan Broly Legend Unleashed. Being able to awaken without, if your opponent's kind of trying to stall you out, helps this deck so much. You don't want to awaken yourself because it has anti-synergy with Dormant Legends. So if your opponent kind of realizes that and is like, oh, my leader doesn't need to attack you, so I'm not going to, you're just going to play this card for free and be like, boom, now I'm awakened, I draw 1, untap 1, and now I have 7 cards in my life. So really kind of flips the table on it, and just kind of helps out those kind of tough matchups in that regard. So really like all this. I think it was well designed. I like playing it a lot, and I'm really excited to see what people do with it in the upcoming weeks.
Number 3.
All right, this list is definitely biased. So I've been playing a lot with this Son Goku and Vegeta, and to be honest, when I first saw these cards, I thought they were kind of not so good. But after playing with them, I feel like as long as everything goes right, you can be really oppressive with them, and it feels awesome. So the main idea for this deck is you want to get out this 8-drop, and then just keep swimming with it and combo 3 from your energy to make sure that your opponent only pretty much has 1 energy to untap with. So and to get this guy out, you need to do a Union Potara on 2 blue and 2 yellow energy on a blue Son Goku and a yellow Vegeta. So which isn't impossible to do, especially with the leader being able to summon a Goku and Vegeta from your hand on turn 4. So it really lines up yourself for success. I'd say the biggest hindrance to this is that there's a lot of potential for counterplay, and it really just depends on how big counterplay is this next set. Mutaito can also hurt this card a lot, just because you need to swing with this to get its effects. So I don't think it's broken, but I think it's powerful when it really goes off. So I really like that card. This whole archetype and everything like that. Also, this Trunks paired up with it is just broken in so many ways. Being able to just get this, for free from your energy, and it's a big 30k double strike when your opponent has like 1 or no energy, is just oppressive and powerful in that. And when you play this card from your energy, you get to draw a card and also put another card in your energy. So this really helps your Vegito have more energy to just combo with to activate its effect. And it just has some recursion. You can't like infinitely do it, but there's just potential for it to go an extra turn or 2, which can just be devastating to have your opponent play like 3 or 4 turns with 1 energy. So I really like this archetype. I'm going to probably be playing this a lot and just see how far I can really take it.
Number 2.
All right, number 2 might be a little bit lame, but I think it's really important, and it's just these multicolored cards that have these permanents that say, oh, if there's a card that are both the 2 colors that this card are, negate other than this card, negate this card's energy exhaust skill in all areas. So If you already have a multicolored card in your energy and you try to charge Broly Demonic Origins or Beerus Fickle God, then this card just comes in untapped. And I think this is fantastic. I think this gets around the hurdle that I've been facing with a lot of multicolored decks of just, oh, there are a lot of strong effects, but I can't get them off because I don't have the energy to do so. And now it just really insensitizes you to like to have a turn one charge a multicolor, because then turn two, guess what? You have either two blue energy or two yellow energy, or two red energy or two green energy, and there's just a lot of flexibility in all that, and being able to charge one of these multicolor cards without having to put in rest mode is fantastic. So 9 times out of 10, these cards are just going to be in your energy, but also an added bonus to these are both semi like reasonable effects for 2 energy. So being able to play Beerus and just draw a card is fantastic, and also being able to play Broly and your opponent has to drop 1 card from their hand is great. So if I was to choose one of the 2 to be great, I'd say Broly is the far and ahead, just because it has so much synergy with Broly decks. Like the 1-drop green Broly from set 1, you're able to find this because it's a green Broly still, and all that. So I think this one gets the edge of the 2 of them. But I think if they really want to push multicolors being viable, I think these cards right here really help it and kind of push it over the edge of like a little bit clunky. So really like these cards, and let's go into the coveted number 1.
Number 1.
All right, number 1 is the Universe 6 Veggies. You probably saw these coming. Maybe not, but based on my testing and seeing other people play these archetypes, I think this has the potential to be the most powerful. It just has so much flexibility and all that. And maybe I'm not playing the right decks against it, and I know that for a fact that this deck can kind of be low on hand size sometimes. So maybe we need to play a deck like Raddatz. Woo, I'm saying it. Raddatz is going to be Universe 6, but just in general, after playing it and playing against it, it just has a lot of elements that just remind me of Storm, and a lot of like semi-degenerate plays of being able to evolve a card on top of an easy card and just go off from there. And the biggest thing about these cards is it has disruption in the sense of either tapping your opponent's energy, which is fantastic. We've already seen with Height of Mastery that tapping your opponent's energy can just be fantastic and pave the road for winning, because your opponent can't literally do anything anymore. So there's that, and then also there's the cool hit, which I call him cool because I don't think he's viable, but I think he's neat. That's able to unawaken your opponent's leader. This is the first time we're going to see this effect, but hopefully it's not the last. But I think it's a really cool effect, and really can get your opponents off guard, and just in general, like make your opponent's leader minus 5k normally. So I think that's really neat. But I'd say of the 5 cards that are really important, it's these 2 4-drop Veggies, these 2 1-drop Veggies, and the 4-drop Champa and Vados. And if I was to choose a card from all this, I'd say this Champa and Vados are just the nuttiest cards here. Being able to play this card for just a rival for 1 yellow is, already kind of cool. But it has a permanent that reduces the combo cost of all your blue and yellow Universe 6 cards in your hand by 1. That is crazy, especially in a deck that wants to combo with the 4-drop Veggies to evolve on top of the 1-drops. Making it 1 step easier just helps you so much. And also, it has like a removal, like it has protection that's better than barrier in regards of... let me just read it. It's really wonky. We haven't seen anything like this. If this card is removed from a battle area, so it's not even KO'd or warped. It strictly says is if it's removed. So any of those things. By opponent's skill, you may choose 1 card in your hand, place in your drop area. If you do, this card remains in your battle area. Switch to rest mode, then choose up to 1 of your opponent's energy, switch it to rest mode. So for 1 card, you're able to protect it and switch 1 of your opponent's energy to rest mode. And they still have to deal with this guy that makes all your 10k combos free. And I can't overstate how much this effect is nuts. Especially since there's so many 10k cards that have the Universe 6 tagged right now. Being able, like your opponent is trying to combo 10k, they have to discard 2 cards. You can just say, oh, boom, 1 card. It's safe now, right? And it just helps with card economy. And then once you do that, you get to evolve it. If you play them on your turn, you're able to evolve it in the 4-drops. And Both these are crazy. So this Khalifa, when you play this card, choose one of your opponent's battle cards or energy, switch to rest mode. Just being able to switch a card from in your energy to rest mode is just ludicrous to me. And then also this Kale. So during your turn, or sorry, when you play this card, choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards in rest mode. Negate that card's skill for duration of the turn, then return it to his owner's hand. So pretty nice removal in that. It's also critical, and I think I said it, but this Khalifa is double strike. So just being able to get these guys out for literally free, on top of being able to combo them on other attacks to make them more powerful. I think these cards are going to be seen a lot. And last time I checked, they're like $6 in TCG Player. I would say they are worth scooping up if you're trusting just a poor old egg like me. But I think you're going to see a lot of this. I think this is the best deck coming out of Series 7. Doesn't mean it's going to be the best deck of Series 7, because I think maybe there's some cards, some decks that might still reign supreme. But strictly looking at this set, I think these Universe 6 veggies are fantastic. So that's it from me. Let me know what cards that you think should be on this list that make it. And let me just know what you think about my opinions and all that. And I'll catch you all next time.